Hola, buenas tardes. Bienvenidos a ¿Qué pasa, mujer? Welcome to ¿Qué pasa, mujer? Estamos aquí otro domingo celebrando ¿Qué pasa, mujer? Estamos muy contentos que ya creo que vamos a 3 años de tener este programa. Entonces le queremos agradecer a nuestra audiencia. We have been doing the show for about a little bit more than 3 years. So we are extremely excited, and we just want to thank our audience for being supportive and continuing to be here with us every Sunday, 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So it is officially 2026, and everybody's doing New Year's resolutions or readjusting their goals, doing new things, getting rid of old things. So one of the things that we experience as Latinas, as Latinos, or just being multicultural, is having two worlds, dos mundos. So those mundos, some of us have learned to turn it on and off. Whether it's we actually all do it every day, right? So we have to turn off that we're at work, turn on and off when we get home, how we deal with our spouses, how we deal with our children, or as caregivers, we might be turning on and off our relationships or how we do things with people that we take care of, and also maybe people that take care of us. So this is just part of how we do life in reference to turning on and off things. So as Latinas, and because that's the story that I know, right? So as Latinas, we do have to navigate different things. We have to navigate our culture, and those are some things that kind of mesh at times, like a Venn diagram, where my culture is very rich and it's very easy at home, but my culture has to be sometimes be introduced when I'm out in public in a different way. So there are times that I do have to adjust. I am Colombian, so sometimes being completely transparent here, because that's what we do. Being Colombian has a not everyone, but we do have the reputation of that it's always kind of like drug related or crime related or Pablo Escobar or stuff like that. So yes, that is true and it does exist. And I'm actually very intrigued by Pablo Escobar and how he did business. So that is part of my culture, and I do embrace it, even though maybe in many people's opinions it was negative, but I still embrace it because it is part of my culture. So I think being able to handle those conversations at home about Pablo Escobar and the type of people like Pablo Escobar, and then being able to have those same conversations outside of my home are handled very differently, depending on my environment, who I'm with. Um, so there are some things, even within Latin America, we might have me being Colombian, Maddie being Dominican, and just having different cultures. That's also a little bit different. So even when we congregate in those spaces, that might be different as well in reference to our cultures. Some of the foods and some of the dialect that we use, the vocabulary that we use. So just being able to maneuver that can be challenging at time if we don't, number one, if we're not knowledgeable of our own history, could be challenging. And also, we don't know how the other parties are going to respond to what we say. So, for me personally, being Colombian, I have learned to be able to have respectful conversations about the stereotype of Colombians being related to drugs. It's just a fact. So that's my own self-reflection about that. I Because of my personality, I kind of like turn it into like it's a funny joke sometimes. So I start off with humor, but then I then change it over to seriousness, and I will educate people on history a little bit, history of my culture, the Latino culture in general, not just Colombian. And then I do explain how. Let me give you an example. So, like with Pablo Escobar. This is again my personal opinion. I think that he had a great business aspect, the business brain. I think he did a lot for my country in reference to. There's a lot of he would go to he would go and visit a lot of the farmers, and he would provide medical assistance. He would bring food, water. He partnered up with Che Guevara, and they both partner up, and they would go out to the jungle, and they would provide these resources for the natives in the land. So they did a lot of good. They were able to, money kind of helps you do things a little bit quicker. So he was able, because of the money that he had, he was able to save a lot of things and help a lot of people, a lot of low income people. However, at some point, in my opinion, again, I believe he just got a little bit greedy, and then just money, power, and all of that type of environment kind of got to his ego, and then just kind of things went down. But overall, I like his business aspect, if that makes sense. So I've had to have those conversations with people that is not just the fact that Colombia may grow drugs, and then they get sent over here, and then people use them here in the United States and in other countries, and in Colombia as well. But that's an example of how that conversation is going to be different at home, because at home we just kind of talk about it and say, hey, this is what we did. And like, even with my grandmother, and as you guys know, I talk about her all the time, she's 90. She doesn't like Pablo Escobar. She doesn't see Pablo Escobar the way that I see him, because the things that I know about him is through documentaries, through books. She lived it. She saw the news live when it was happening, because she was in Colombia when all of that stuff happened. So that makes a huge difference. So today's topic is really about us being multicultural and having two lives almost, right? So we have our home life, and then we have our outside of the house life, where we have to deal with culture. Even raising our children. As you guys know, I have a 21-year-old and I have a 15-year-old. So I'm a little bit more involved in the day to day with my 15-year-old, because my 21-year-old is kind of like on his own already. But even culturally, the other day, we had to have a conversation about how we need to make La Abuelita's life easier, and it's not something, again, that we talk about anywhere else, but it's just my culture does that. We take care of the elderly, and we make their lives easier, and we kind of put them on a pedestal, because we're here because of them. So those conversations, and even on his father's side of the family, they do take care of their elderly, but in a different way compared to my side. And also because I'm an only child and I'm the oldest grandchild, so the responsibility is a little bit different. But having to maneuver that is a challenge at times, because my kids were not born in Colombia like I was. They were born here. Their father is not Colombian, so things are the perception of life is a little bit different, if that makes sense. So that's, raising children is different when it comes to culture. Me having to defend my Colombianness is also different, and I'm sure every country has to do different things for that. uh, Also, relationships are different. I think Latinas have a reputation. I don't know about 2026, but I know earlier, when I was a little bit younger, the reputation was Latinas are submissive, they take care of their man, they cook, they'll make their plates, all of that stuff that most men. I don't know what this is what I think social media has sold to us, right? Or even old school. This is what was done. So sometimes we have to battle that, because I might be with someone that is not expecting me to fix their plate, even though I want to, but maybe they don't want me to. So challenging those things, as well as you date outside of your culture, is also something that we have to juggle and kind of like go back and forth. Um, Finances is another area. How we save money. I know I've told you guys in the past. My grandmother is 90, and she has a third grade education. and she purchased a apartment in New York City. She paid it off in 15 years. No, 13 years, because she always corrects me. She paid it off in 13 years, and she did what I've learned to say it is the envelope method. I learned it from Dave Ramsey. So it's pretty much the envelope method. She makes a certain amount of money every week. She has different envelopes, and she allocates money for food, transportation, savings, emergencies. And that's how she was able to pay off her apartment. This is something that she did. This is actually something that a lot of my family members do. This week, I actually watched a video about how now that we have dual income households, we struggle more financially for some reason. Where before, mom would kind of like typically stay at home with the kids, dad would work, and there was always money for savings, there was always money for vacations. And now that we have dual income households, we have less money, we have more debt. So I don't know what the thoughts are. I would love to hear from our audience to see what you guys think about that, because I haven't done a lot of research on it, but when I saw the video, I think it's kind of true. If I think about the some of the people that I know that are in my circle, that they do have dual incomes. But I don't know if we're doing more, we're spending more. I know definitely we have more membership options. So I don't know. I don't know what you guys think about that. Also, food. I know sometimes, so like in Colombia, they do have, not Colombia, I don't know about Colombia, but definitely Venezuela. When I went there, they had a McDonald's, but it wasn't like the McDonald's here. Me personally, I was born in Colombia and then I lived in Mexico for 5 years, and I've been in the United States since I was 9. And I'm gonna be 48. Well, this year I'll be 48. Um, so I pretty much have been in the United States my adult life, but I love multicultural food. I love my culture food. I love my food from my country, and I think it's because my mother would cook it, my grandmother would cook that food, and it's just something that I love and desire. My boys, my sons, they also like Colombian food. They like Latino food. They also like food from that side of the family, but they do. They are aware of bandeja paisa and arroz and frijoles and sancocho and all that stuff. So we that's another thing that we have to juggle at times too, because before I was an entrepreneur, I had a job that I worked for somebody else, and I would eat my lunch, and my food would look different than other people. Some people would be intrigued by it and they would ask me, "Oh my God, like what is that? Looks delicious." Or some other people might be like, "Oh my God, like what is that?" So like I don't eat cow tongue, but Colombians eat cow tongue. They eat blood sausage. They eat chitlins as well. Well, we eat. I don't eat that stuff. I never have, but I know that it's something that it is cultural, and other people that are not used to my culture may frown upon eating some of those items. So we have to deal with it on the workplace as well. Um, what else? Dating is different as well. Um, Typically, even today in Latin America, um, especially females, they stay home until they get married. So if you never get married, then you're probably always going to be at home. But typically, you go to school, go to college. Once you graduate from college, you might be dating someone, and then you might marry someone, and then that's when you leave home. If not, you kind of are always living with your parents, and even though you might be working, you may still contribute financially to the household. Here in the United States, I've seen a combination of things, but I think the core, the foundation, still is like that. I know with my mom and my grandmother, I never felt pressured to leave home. Um, because I didn't get married till I was like 29 or something like that. So prior to that, I was independent. I was on my own, but I never felt the pressure of them saying, you're 18 or you're 21, you need to leave. That wasn't something that was pushed on me, because my culture allows me to stay home until I get married. So that's also different for some people. I think today here in the United States, or at least in my circle, people are staying home a little bit longer. My son is 21 and he just recently moved out on his own, and I embraced it. I embraced it, even though that's not what my culture tells me. But I think I'm all about balance and having balance and thinking about, one day he's going to be somebody's husband or somebody's dad. And I just want him to kind of make those adjustments and learn now before he actually has a family and a wife to kind of take care of as well. Um, let's see what else. Careers. Career is big. The independence, um, me being an entrepreneur. I don't know. Um, I just have embraced it, and because I embrace it, I live my day every day, and I don't really stop to think what other people think about the fact that I'm a Latina, and that I'm an entrepreneur. I know in the city that I live in, I'm one. It's there might be um, um, I just embrace it. I embrace it because um, I love what I do, and no one has told me that I'm not equipped to do it. Nobody has told me that I'm not good at it, and nobody has told me that I shouldn't be doing it because I'm Latina. So I continue to do it. I know in my country, um, there are in my family, we have entrepreneurship. We have women entrepreneurs. We have male entrepreneurs. And so I think within my family, that's how we were raised. But it's not something that is frowned upon. Here in the United States, I have seen a lot of women that have helped their husbands with the business, and it's part of the entrepreneurship. And I think um, we do embrace working for ourselves here in the United States, and most of the Hispanic owned businesses in the United States are female owned. They're initiated by women. Sometimes the husbands may be involved in the business, sometimes not. But we that's not something that is necessarily machista, that only men do entrepreneurship. So that's something that we have embraced as a culture, and even and it's not something new, but because I know my grandmother, I see the women in my family, their husbands worked outside of the home, but the women were at home, and a lot of the women in my family sewed. So they would do alterations, or they would do, kind of make dresses for people or fix their clothing. Um, to me, I see that as part of entrepreneurship, and it just kind of runs through my blood in my family. So that's just something that we do. Um, However, there have been times I have been in circles where I'm the only Latina female, and um, at the beginning there's the energy is a little bit heavy in reference, because I think it's unknown. Like sometimes people don't know how to handle it. They don't know how to respond because they don't want to be disrespectful sometimes, or they automatically look down upon it, or also because this I own a tutoring company. So whether I was Latina or not, because it's a tutoring company, a lot of people don't think that it's an actual business that can be done on a full-time basis unless you're a franchise. So I have sat in circles feeling that, but again, it's my job to have a conversation to educate them that I'm just like them. I remember, I'll tell you guys a story. A couple of years ago, I sat in a meeting, and majority, I was the youngest, I was the only female, and everybody else was American. They were mainly older Caucasian men. And when I say older, maybe I was in my 30s and maybe they were in their 50s. And at the beginning, I was extremely intimidated because they were talking about finances, but it was a group where they an accountability group. So they got together every 2 months and they shared their finances, their marketing, all of their concerns and everything that was going correct that they shared during this meeting. And I was extremely intimidated being in that room because I was Latina. So it's like I did it to myself. But at the end of the meeting, I was able, well, somewhere in the middle towards the end, I started to feel, hey, Maddie,
Hey,
how are you? We're
you're
talking about,
good. Buenos
I don't know
dias.
if you've been able to, I don't know if you've been able to hear, but we just kind of been talking about the challenges of kind of like going back and forth within our culture. So I was just talking about how I was in a meeting a couple of years ago, and I was the only Latina that was there, and majority of the people that were there were Anglo men that were 20 years, 30 years older than I was at the time. So I did it to myself in reference to feeling like I was the only Latina, only female in the room, and it was extremely intimidating at the beginning. But somewhere towards the middle, towards the end, I got comfortable because I saw that they had similar challenges that I did, just in different levels, if that makes sense. So at that time, I was making thousands. They were making, millions, but they still had challenges. Like, even I remember one of the gentlemen showed up and he didn't have his finances in order. So like every time they met, they had to bring a report of their finances. This gentleman didn't have it, and he made his profit was in the millions. So I started to feel comfortable because I felt like we had some challenges that were the same. So we would just have been talking about the going back and forth with, how we handle culture at home versus how we handle culture at the job place. So I'm glad you joined because I wanted to kind of hear a little bit your perspective as to when do you notice that you turn it on and off depending where you're at.
I think like you said, like at the workplace, it's a little bit different because depending on your surroundings, you kind of find yourself trying to or having to try to explain yourself a lot. This is why I do this, or this is why this happens. Because you don't know. You're never sure how much the other person is kind of understanding what's going on or what's happening. So I think it just depends a lot with whoever is around you. I think we have spoken before about the Spanglish part, like speaking Spanglish or English or
Mhm.
Spanish or going back and forth. And you notice that I don't know about you, but like I've noticed that if I am with a person that I know speaks both languages, I don't have to think so much about what I want to say. I just say the things. And whether the word comes out in Spanish or English, I know you're going to understand me. So I feel more relaxed and I'm just talking. And then whichever language the word comes in first, then I am okay with it because I know you're going to get it. So, but if you're talking to a person that only speaks English, it's like you're kind of forced to kind of like stay present, stay in the moment, and kind of be restricted or feel kind of restricted because I have to find the proper word to say what I'm trying to say. So I feel like with culture, it's the same thing. It's like you never know how much the person that's on the other side understands. So you kind of find yourself trying to always constantly trying to explain yourself. I think when I'm at home, or like I said, when I am around people that I feel comfortable with or that are multicultural like me, it's kind of a little bit easier. So I guess to answer a long answer to your question is, just kind of depends on where I am and who I'm with.
Yeah. And that's true because thank God for Google. Because sometimes I get stuck and I'm like, hold on, let me look up this word in Spanish. Sometimes I know it in Spanish, but I don't know it in English and vice versa. So thank God for Google, because I will I
Yes.
will have to look it up. Yeah, so I have definitely been in that situation. Um, and I think too, I wanted you to talk a little bit about leadership. Um, I know for me personally, I've been in leadership roles where sometimes you have to fight for the respect. Have you experienced that? And tell me a
All
little
the
bit about
all the time, and I think, before they see anything else, for specifically for us, it's just being a woman. It's like there's something about being a woman leader. We are always gonna be the underdog. You walk into a place and it's like, oh, can she really do it? And it's like we have to prove ourselves not only at a professional level, how smart are you, or how knowledgeable are you about your field. It's, she's a woman, can she do this? It's like that's the first question. So
that.
I think, even if it's not said out loud, I think, it's just always implied. And then when you kind of prove that as a woman you still can do this, it's like, okay, everything else comes into play. So I've again been questioned about, again, being a woman, being a leader, my accent, I speak too fast, I speak too slow, the accent is too thick, maybe that's why they don't understand you, maybe you're not being successful. I think I talked a little bit about, at some point in my banking career, I became a branch leader. So I was running my own branch, and while there were a lot of things that we were able to improve while I was leading the team, there were things that, I didn't get a chance to kind of be able to make a difference on. So, I moved on to another role, and I kind of, low key in the back of my mind, somewhere in there, always felt like a failure because I wasn't able to make the branch successful at all levels, at that time. And probably a year or two passed, and again, there was a revolving door when it came to managers or leaders for that particular location. So I was like, okay, it was not me, it was like not nothing that I necessarily did. It was, again, there were many factors, probably, the situation, the timing, whatever was being asked at the time, So I do feel good because I know that I made an impact at that time. I did doubt myself because, again, I wasn't able to fix the whole thing, But again, at the end of the day, I knew that it was not anything that I didn't do or that I did not to be successful. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, all the time. I think, we're questioned all the time, anytime we are put in a role of leadership. And I think, I mean, you can speak on that even more than me.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely challenging, but I think it's about the energy that you bring to the table, with those people. So I can either confirm what you're thinking has been correct, or I can have you look at it in a different perspective. And so I think that I love the fact that I have the ability to do that, that I can contribute to try and help to, to kind of convince you otherwise. So I do embrace those challenges. Again, only because I'm extremely confident about what I do for a living, and I'm extremely passionate about it. And you can take me to any platform and I will speak positive about what I do in a confident way, because that's my energy. If it was something that I was trying to sell that I'm not really sold on myself, I, I would fail. I would definitely fail. I also wanted to ask, because our producer brought up the fact about staying connected to our families and our countries. So I know for me, again, we have a lot of us use WhatsApp. And so we have, my family and I actually have a WhatsApp group with, it's mainly us here in the United States and then family members in Colombia. Some family members don't want to join because sometimes they start sending too many like religious videos and flyers and stuff like that. But I enjoy it because there are times that I'm able to kind of post certain things about my grandmother or my kids or about us, and it keeps me connected to them. When I go back to Colombia, even though I don't talk to them all the time, but when I go back to Colombia, they embrace me as if we see each other all the time. And I love that about our culture, that I can go back home and it's like you've been there all your life. ¿Verdad?
Yeah, it's like even if it's through your family, like for example, in my case, my dad travels back and forth. He spends, a couple of months here, a couple of months there in DR. So he goes back and forth, and it's like, for example, he goes and he stays at my cousin's house or my uncle's house, and I could, like you said, it could be months, and since the last time I spoke to them, but it's like, yesterday I called my cousin. I'm like, oh hey, and she's like, oh yeah, how are you? How's the baby? And it's like, okay, like no time passed because we have that connection, whether it is through the phone, like you said, through WhatsApp, or or messaging back and forth. It's also that connection with like my dad going back and forth, and even if I don't speak to them, my dad is like, oh, she's good, and she has a grandbaby, and the grandbaby, and this and that, so it's like we still connected, and it's like I don't know, it's just we're family, so that connection is always there. So
Yeah, I love that about our culture. I know, there's always one that holds a grudge or has junk to talk or whatever. There's always one in every family. I don't care what your background is. But majority of our culture, Latinos, we are truly like that. It's nothing but love, and we show our love through our conversations and through feeding you, ¿verdad? And Maddie knows because she cooks all the time. So that's how she gets people to come back to the house.
so true. So true. I was telling one of my coworkers, we were talking about, food. We're talking about a particular client, and this client, every time he sees that as somebody of, maybe a different ethnic background, they're like, oh, you gotta feed me, whatever, they eat in your country. So the client always wants you to kind of bring him food. And I was like, talking to them, and I was like, that's my love language, like I love to cook and I love to feed people, and kind of share my culture that way. And it was funny because my brother was in town, surprised me for the weekend, and we were talking about that, and he said, out of the blues, we were having conversations and we were talking, and all of a sudden he tells me, he says, yeah, she's like mom, she will cook and cook and cook and cook nonstop before she sits down and eat. So sit down and eat. And it like, I forget the context of the conversation, but that part, resonated with me. Not only because he said that I reminded him of mom, but I do the same thing my mom used to do, and maybe unconsciously or consciously, but it happens. But yeah, definitely food is my way of showing love to the people that are around
Yeah.
me. So
Yeah. Yeah, I do it through my actions. I do cook, but I like to cook when I want to cook. I don't cook every day. So, but when I cook, I like to cook, and I like to for me to feed people, and like you sit down and I take care of everything for you. Like that's what I enjoy to do. Another thing that I was going to mention that I think we don't tap into a lot is mental health. How we view mental health compared to other cultures. I know I've seen videos on social media where like the kid is on like the couch talking to the mom or the therapist about they have, he's like mental health or whatever, and then the person's like, "Párate, eso no existe," like get over it, like like "Para, vete a trabajar" or whatever, right? It's almost like mental health doesn't exist. Um, I've had conversations with family members in reference to therapy, and they'll say like, "Si estás loca, if you're crazy, then you go to therapy." Like crazy people go to therapy, right? We don't go to therapy for preventative reasons. It's almost like you have to go to a psychiatrist. Like therapists don't exist. It's only psychiatrists, and I think that's something that has not changed throughout the years. What do you think, Maddie?
I agree. I think mental health is such a taboo, and I think
Right.
it's because um, the privilege that we have in this country. You know what I'm saying? It's like here we have access to medical care. We have access to whatever we may need. You don't have money to eat. We can go apply for welfare or whatever, and you can find somewhere where you somebody can feed you. In our countries, there's no such thing. So it's either you have the money to buy the food or you don't eat. Or you go to the neighbor and you ask for food and they might feed you for that day. So there's no such thing as go to government help. I have 3 kids and I need to feed them. Can you help me? There's no such thing. So I think because, I don't know about you, but like me, like I look at my mom and how my parents, grew up on where they came from. Like I hear my parents talk a lot about school. Like my dad, he was going to school, and when he was about to go to high school, his dad said, well, you're not going to school because there's a lot of demonstrations in your school, in the area where you're supposed to go to school, and they're killing students and things like that, and I am not going to let you go to school. So his father pulled him out of school when he was 14, 15, something like that. So my dad started learning to make clothing, because he saw somebody making men's dress pants, and he's like, you know what, I can do that. And he started going behind his father's back, and then eventually he told his dad, and his dad though told him, you don't know how to do that. And he goes, buy me a sewing machine and I'll show you. And and he started making pants, and the rest is history. So that's how my dad earned a living for all of his life. So again, saying that to say you don't have access to certain resources. So it's like there's other things that are worse than that. You feel sad, but we don't have time for sadness because we need to figure out how are we going to make the next dollar for tomorrow. So I think that's the mentality. A lot of the times when you come from places like like we do, countries like we do, it's like we don't have time, for those things. And it's funny that you bring that topic up because this morning I was watching Marcelo's new special on Netflix. I don't know if you heard it, but Marcelo is a young kid. He's from Saturday Night Live, and he's a comedian. He is of Cuban and Dominican descent, and he is hilarious. And he, his comedy is about his upbringing and his culture. And one of the skits that he has in the show is like, he's like, my sister and I, we wanted depression. We wanted to be we tried to get, and he's like, we tried to get depression, and we told mom, we are depressed. And he goes, of course he went like full force, and he's like, and my mom became a rapper, and she said, I had to leave my country because they took my house away, and I did this and I did that, and I had to survive, and I came to a country where I didn't speak the language, and I had to learn to speak another language, and then when I think I'm making it, I get pregnant with you. And then and she just went he went off, and he spoke like nonstop for like 3 minutes, like fast paced. And then he goes, I learned that you don't get depression, you earn it. So it was just hilarious. So,
Mm.
but again, a lighthearted way of saying, it's like we go through so much. Like if we think about our family and our history, there is so much that comes before your mental health. And sometimes kind of that's what pushed them. But then you get to the United States, and it's like it's a completely different world, and we have access to so much that now it's like, oh, you know what, my children are starving. Okay, let me try to do this. Okay, they're not starving anymore. Okay, what do I do with the sadness that I feel? So if you can sit down and pay attention to whatever you're feeling, then you can address it. But I think most of the time is our families didn't have time to address the things that they were feeling, or they would address it the wrong way. Let me say that because, a lot of things happen that, we overlook because that was the norm. But if you think about it, those things were happening because there was a deeper issue going on, So,
Mhm.
um,
that we didn't talk about. So I encourage everyone to watch the show. So it's called Marcelo Hernandez, American Boy. It's only an hour and 4 minutes. So I'm gonna watch that tonight, Maddie. Thank you. Um,
It is hilarious. It is
yeah,
hilarious. I
I'm
watched it with my
sure.
kids and they loved it. So
I'm sure. I'm sure. I wanted to ask you something specifically about you as a poet. Does that exist in your world of poetry? Have you, especially like, I love the bilingual poems, but like when you do your bilingual poems, like especially maybe at the beginning when you first started doing them, what was the impact then, and what is it like now when you do them?
it's the same thing, it's you walk into a place anywhere. I think this is anywhere. And as a human being, you want to feel that sense of belonging. I belong here, or there's room in here for me, and the only way that we get to feel like that is when you feel understood, when you feel like the person that it's in front of you kind of understands the full picture. So it's always at the beginning, it's always hard because it's like, how much do they understand? How much can they relate? And especially when you get into a world like, like spoken word, you walk into a room and you never know who's going to be listening. So you have to, how can I put it? We were talking about this, it's like you want to do art for the art, but you also have to, I don't want to say dumb it down, but make it simple enough that regardless who's in front of you can understand what you're trying to say, the feeling that you're trying to transmit, the words that are coming out of your mouth. Because you will have poets that will use the big words, that I can't pronounce, that will have these concepts that are, out of this world, and you're like, okay, I'm trying to follow, I'm lost, and they lose you, So it's like a combination of a lot, and you have to kind of, how can I put it? Again, depends who you have in front of you. But I think, you always will face that sense of belonging. But I think eventually, a lot of the times I feel, especially in the arts world, we put a lot of those restrictions up on ourselves. And when you learn to be you, I think people will adapt. So you asked me, for me personally, at the beginning, it was hard. Like I said, I always found myself trying to explain. And I think that's why when I started doing my writing, I think I talked about this before too. I used to write in Spanish and in English. So every poem I had a Spanish version and an English version, because I always felt that in order for someone to understand me, they had to understand both sides, So I had to do this poem in Spanish. And if you spoke Spanish, you understood it. And then in English, so that in case you didn't understand my Spanish version, like, this is what I want to say. And this is how I'm going to translate it for you so that you can understand what I'm feeling. That's kind of how it felt at the beginning. And then now it's different, because I think, again, I found a family, I found a place that I belong. And like you said before, when it comes to you and your job and as a leader, you can walk into any room, and if they put you to talk about what you will go up there. I might not know about this, but I know this, and you're confident about it, and everybody's going to understand your point because you understand. So I feel the same way. I think as an artist, once you find your footing and you know exactly what you want to say, it's a little bit easier to walk into a room. And even if people don't understand you, kind of understand, the feeling of what you are trying to transmit. I think there's a poem that I've been doing on here. I did it like towards the end of the year, and it's my poem where I reference Bad Bunny. Like that poem has a lot of words in Spanish, a lot of phrases. And I remember when I was trying it out, I did it, and I asked my daughter, and my daughter was like, "Well, you got to be careful because there's a lot of Spanish in there, and you might lose people that don't speak Spanish." And I was like, you know what, that's true, and it was always like risky. But I've done it in places where I've had people like people that I know don't speak Spanish at all, and they're like, "Oh, I love all your poems, but that last one was really good." And it's like, really, all the other poems were complete in English, where you like that one, So again, back to being comfortable and knowing what you're trying to say, and again, as a performing artist, finding that there's other ways to communicate feeling.
Yeah. So I was in a meeting Thursday, and I text Maddie because we needed somebody. I'm in a committee, and we needed somebody to perform, right? And so our guest Vidal, he was in the meeting with me, and we were like kind of like brainstorming about who do we bring on, and we were like, hey, let's do something different. And your name came up, right? And it was amazing. Like that moment was so amazing to me because Vidal co-signs what I said, and he's like a different age bracket, different culture, different race, different gender than me. So I just thought it was amazing that you could be a part of that, Maddie. Because I think a lot of us don't know that culture could be expressed the way that you express it. Like I get it. I get like open mics and the poetry and all that stuff. But I think that when you mix culture, it doesn't have to be his Spanish, but when you mix culture, it kind of like really brings people together. Like it allows me to embrace your difference better. ¿Verdad? That's why I love it. Like I just think that when you came to my grandmother's birthday party and you did your poem, and I know it was like extremely spontaneous, but I know even though majority of the people were there were Hispanic, a lot of them were older and they're
Mhm.
not used to spoken word, right? But they so embraced it and they talked about it afterwards, and it was just great because it gives it a different type of energy. So I think that's awesome. But also, before we keep going, El Fego de Rio sent us some thumbs up on our live on Facebook, I believe. So we want to say hello to our audience. Lily, my mother, is in Panama, so I don't even know if she's watching the show today. She left us, me and my grandmother. She just left us on Monday. She said, "Buy me a ticket to go to Panama on Thursday."
Let's go,
And
Lily.
she's living her best life, I tell you.
I
So I don't know if you guys know, but Latinos contribute 4.3 trillion dollars to the US economy. So we're extremely proud. So I will continue to spend my money. I will continue to make it and spend it so that the number can go up every year. But yeah, it's a very proud number, and I share it every show that we have because if we get a new listener, I want that new listener to know that this is what we contribute. So I'm extremely proud of that number. Also, it was Maddie's birthday on Friday. So, feliz cumpleaños.
thank
I
you.
love.
Thank you.
Yes,
Yes, it's my welcome into the next half a century. So
I love it. You have to embrace it because 50 is the new 40. Mark, our producer, says it's 30. So,
listen, I'll take it. I actually there's three of us in our family, like the cousins in my family that are turning 50 this year, three of the girls. And I literally got shirts made for all of us, and it says, I am so happy I get to be 25 twice.
okay, okay. That's like a math problem. The kids are going to be like, what?
How old is she again? Exactly.
Oh my God, I love it. So, as you guys know, we always finish our show with a poem from Maddie or one of her associates. So today we're ready, Maddie. Estamos listos para tu poema.
Of course, of course. Before I get into poem, I also wanted to say, talking about, the sense of belonging and, making your mark and walking into a place, this, again, like we said, this past Friday was my birthday, and I got a surprise party. I was surprised, like literally, my worlds collided. Since I started performing, I know that I have, a home life, my work life, and then my poetry life. And we combined all of it. I mean, not we, I had nothing to do with it. I walked into this room and I almost died when I saw all these people from all these different areas in my life together in the same room. So, I had my work family there, I had my family, and then, of course, my poetry family was there too. And one of the poets that got to perform, again, was, one of the newest poets that we have. She is Hispanic. She's 24 years old, younger than my daughter, and I call her my poetry daughter. Wherever we go, she's like, "Oh yeah, mom," and she calls me mom. And again, about that sense of belonging, I think, when she said, when I walked into the venue, the first thing after I did my first poem, the first thing everybody said is, "You have to meet Maddie." And for weeks we didn't, our paths didn't cross, but everybody was like, "You have to meet Maddie, you have to meet Maddie." And it's like, and everybody telling me on the other end, "You have to meet Lou." And it's like, when we met, it's like, I think I know you because everybody else knows you. And and then it happened. And I think, again, sometimes we make a difference and we don't know the difference that we make. And she says, I've learned so much and I can be here, I am allowed to be here, because of you. So that meant a lot to me. And but again, us walking in there, if I didn't walk in there feeling confident about what I had to say or what I have to say, she probably wouldn't feel as comfortable to do the same thing. So this poem that I'm going to share with you guys is called My Obvious Secret. I think I performed this poem before, but it's about, living in that two culture world, like having to be from here or there. Also, I did want to mention there's another documentary on Netflix. It's called Rebecca, and it's the Becky G, the life story of Becky G. Becky G is a singer and actress. And she said, there was a little note that she said on there that her parents are Mexican and she was born in LA, and she embraces her culture. And she says that she has a problem with saying, "I am 50-50. I am half from here and half from there." She says, "I am learning to embrace my 200." That's what she says. "I'm 100% Mexican and I'm 100% from LA, and it's like, I'm this whole person. I'm not a half person from this and a half person from that. I'm a whole person." So this is my obvious secret, and this is embracing my 200%, because I am going to own that now. Um, I am from neither here nor there. I'm from I'm from a point in the equator where originality and tradition hold meetings, where you can see the in-betweeners transitioning from silent to expressing to embracing their history. American by birth, Dominican by feeling. I'm from neither here nor there. I'm from where opportunity whispers, shackled dreams get liberated, and if you have something to say, someone is bound to listen. The fusion of two hearts, joint dreams with the same intentions, from papi and mommy's drive, not being limited by their acento, from Navarrete and Santiago, from my tios blancos and my tias negritas, from Ramos and Lozano, Antonia and Minerva, mis abuelitas. I was gifted with beats and rhythms, the sandungueo of the drums, music, my explanations, words, the opportunity to give my island a voice. Rice and beans complete every meal. We believe in the power of the plantain. The best desserts are habichuelas con dulce and guava-filled Dominican cakes. But I am from neither here nor there. I love en español y en inglés. A U.S. passport makes me American, pero soy dominicana de corazón. And P.S. I note, I did get to have guava-filled Dominican cake on my birthday. You're on mute, Viviana. We can't hear you. We can't hear you. You're mute.
Yeah, she went on mute. I don't know what happened. There, can you hear it? Can we hear you now, Viviana?
Yeah, I'm not on mute.
You were on mute there for a second. You're not on mute now.
Okay, great. I was just saying that I embrace the 200% situation you mentioned. So I'm going to mention that to my children. And I love the poems. I love everything that you do. I just think that it's amazing. Your talent is amazing. And maybe you could bring Lou to the show so
Oh,
we
I would
can
love
meet her.
that.
Yeah, and then we could hear a poem from you both. Oh my God, do you guys have a poem together?
We do, but the thing is, I think for online, it doesn't work well to do like a poem like that unless we are in the same room. So I don't know.
Mm.
We can try to make that
Okay,
happen.
well, I watch it live. Let me know when you guys perform. I'll watch it live. Um, but I want to say thank you for your time. Thank you, Mark, for everything that you do because you make our lives so much easier. And we will be here next Sunday at 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And we look forward to doing 2026 with you guys. So thank you and have a great week on purpose, as Tangi would say. Thank you.
Are just so impressed with them. Like I said, we've been with them for years. I will recommend and refer anyone to them. We stand by A+ academics. They're the best.
A+ tutorial really did help me with all my grades. They all went up when I came to this place. And I would say I recommend this school to everyone.
So it's a really good environment to be in, especially for me because it makes me look up to my parents.
If you have students that need academic help, A+ Academics is the place to be.
A+ Academics, what a great place to go for academics.
It's just a really great place to learn.
If you're watching this with your friends, you'll probably make a joke.
Because you know what you feel on the inside
isn't what you want people to know.
If you have to pretend to be happy,
find someone you trust and tell them.
If you get mad at things and you don't know why, or have thoughts about hurting yourself,
find someone you trust and tell them.
You are never alone when you share.
Seriously, people care about you.
It's okay to not understand what you're feeling.
And it's easy to think that you're all alone.
But you don't have to be.
You're never alone when you share.
Don't be ashamed to tell someone you trust what you're feeling.
You're not alone.
You are not alone.
Find someone you trust and tell them.
Tell a parent.
Tell a teacher. Tell a brother or sister.
Or just tell a friend.
You haven't done anything wrong.
Talk to someone.
Talk to someone.
It's how things get better.